The great auction hall of Veltor was always full of sound, loud voices, flashing lights, and the smell of smoke and metal. It was a place where the powerful came to buy and sell the weak. Every corner of the hall shone with golden banners and holographic screens showing the faces of those to be sold. Traders laughed, guards shouted, and the sound of chains filled the air. But tonight, in the middle of all that noise, one stage had gone completely silent. Under a harsh blue light stood a young alien woman, thin, trembling, and covered in dust. Her silver hair fell over her shoulders and faint blue lines glowed on her skin, marks of her species. She wore a torn cloth that barely covered her. Her wrists were bound by metal cuffs that hummed softly. The auctioneer, a tall creature with glassy eyes, hit the platform with his rod. Lot 47, female, unclaimed, bred in the slave pens of Threx. Strong body, rare genes, good health. No one moved. The crowd, made of rich aliens in bright cloaks, whispered among themselves. Too plain, one said. Not trained, another added. Some even laughed. She doesn't even look like she understands commands. The girl stood still, her eyes wide but cold. She had been sold 3 times before, each buyer rejecting her. Each time she hoped someone kind might take her, and each time she was returned, beaten, or ignored. Now she knew this was her last chance. If no one bought her tonight, she would be sent to the mines, where slaves did not live long. Her throat was dry. She wanted to scream, to beg, but she had promised herself not to. Not again. She had learned silence was safer. The auctioneer grew impatient. No bids? She's strong, loyal. He forced a smile. Starting price reduced to 5 credits. Still the crowd was quiet. Then, suddenly a voice came from the back of the hall, calm, human, and steady. I'll take her. Everyone turned. The crowd parted as a man walked forward through the thick mist of smoke. He wore a long black coat covered in dust and had a strange light in his eyes, sharp and human, yet unreadable. His boots echoed against the metal floor with each step. A murmur spread among the aliens. A human? Impossible. Humans can't buy slaves. Humans were a rare sight in Veltor. Once they had been strong and proud, explorers of the stars. But now they were nearly extinct, broken and scattered after the wars. To see one here was strange enough. To see one offering to buy a slave, unthinkable. The auctioneer blinked. You human? You have credits? The man reached into his coat and pulled out a small glowing coin, ancient, heavy, and engraved with earth symbols. He placed it on the platform. The scanners flickered, confused. The coin's value couldn't be read by alien tech. What is this? The auctioneer hissed. It's enough, the man said quietly. His voice was deep but tired. The guards moved forward, unsure whether to stop him. Sir, humans can't... But the auctioneer raised a hand. Greed shone in his glassy eyes. Payment accepted, he said quickly. Lot 47 sold. To the human, the girl's eyes widened. For a moment she thought she misheard. The chains around her wrists released with a hiss, falling to the floor. Her hands trembled. No one had ever touched those locks before, not for her. The man stepped closer, his expression unreadable. He took off his cloak and placed it gently around her shoulders. You're free now, he said softly. Free. The word echoed in her mind like thunder. She didn't move. She couldn't even breathe. Around them, whispers filled the air, angry, shocked, confused. She's his now? Humans don't have rights here. This will cause trouble. The man ignored them all. He simply nodded to the auctioneer and began walking toward the exit. The girl hesitated, her bare feet touching the cold metal floor, and then slowly followed him. Outside the hall, rain fell hard, cold drops mixing with dust and smoke. The night sky of Veltor was always dark, full of red clouds and neon lights. The girl pulled the cloak tighter around her small frame. Why did you buy me? She finally asked, her voice barely a whisper. The man didn't answer. He just looked at her. His eyes calm but full of something she hadn't seen in years, kindness. Because no one else would, he said quietly. Lightning flashed in the distance. Behind them, the massive gates of the auction hall closed with a heavy clang. Somewhere deep inside, alarms began to sound. The auctioneer had realized something was wrong with that coin. Something ancient, something human. The girl looked back once more, seeing guards rushing, scanners flashing red. Then she turned to the man again. Who are you? She asked. He didn't reply. He simply walked into the rain, the cloak's edge fluttering in the wind. And as she followed him into the storm, One thought burned inside her heart: whoever he was, this human had just changed her fate, and maybe the fate of an entire galaxy. The rain kept falling as the man and the alien girl walked away from the glowing auction hall. The streets of Veltor were almost empty now, except for a few floating drones that hummed softly above their heads. Neon lights reflected off the wet metal roads, turning everything into a blur of blue and red. The girl followed quietly, her bare feet splashing in the puddles. She still could not believe what had happened. A human had bought her, no, freed her. But freedom felt strange. She had never walked anywhere without chains. Every sound made her flinch. Every shadow made her heart jump. The man said nothing. His steps were steady, confident, like someone who knew exactly where to go. After a long silence, she gathered the courage to speak. "Why did you help me?" He didn't look back. "Because you were alone." "That's not a reason," she said softly, clutching the cloak around her. "No one helps for free." He stopped walking then, turning slowly toward her. The light from a flickering sign fell across his face. His eyes were tired but kind, filled with something that felt almost human warmth. "Maybe I don't need a reason," he said. "Maybe I just saw someone who deserved a chance." The girl lowered her eyes, unsure what to say. Her name was Lyra, though no one had called her that in years. She had been Unit 47 for so long that her own name felt foreign in her mind. They reached a narrow alley behind a row of old metal buildings. Steam rose from broken vents and the air smelled of oil and smoke. The man stopped at a rusted door and tapped a code into a panel. The door hissed open, revealing a small, hidden room filled with old human technology. Things Lyra had never seen before. Metal cases, blinking lights, strange tools. He motioned for her to come inside. "It's safe here. For now," she stepped in, still cautious. The room was cold but dry. The man removed his coat and hung it on a hook. Underneath, he wore a black uniform with faded patches and a symbol on the shoulder, a silver eagle wrapped around a planet. She had seen that symbol before in forbidden history files. It was from Earth. She gasped. "You're a soldier." He looked at her quietly. "I was," he said. "A long time ago." Lyra sat down on the floor, her mind spinning. "But humans, they said you all vanished, that your kind was destroyed after the Great War." He gave a faint smile. "They said many things. Not all of them are true." For a moment, silence filled the small room, broken only by the soft hum of old machines. Lyra looked around, still trying to understand this strange man. He moved with calm strength, but there was sadness in the way he breathed, like someone who had seen too much loss. She hesitated, then asked, "What will happen to me now?" "You'll rest," he said simply. "Then we'll leave this city before sunrise. The auction house won't stay quiet for long." "Leave?" Her voice trembled. "Where will we go?" "Somewhere they won't find you." Lyra frowned. "You mean us?" He paused, surprised. No one had corrected him like that in years. A small smile touched his lips. "Yes," he said finally. "Us." Outside, thunder rolled through the sky. From far away came the faint sound of engines. Patrol ships searching the streets. Lyra moved closer to the wall, fear in her eyes. "They'll come," she whispered. "They always come back for what they think they own." The man opened a small box and pulled out a strange silver device. It projected a faint blue shield across the door. "Not tonight," he said. "They'll be scanning for humans, not you." She looked at him again, confused. "Why would they scan for you?" He didn't answer immediately. His gaze turned distant, almost haunted. "Because I'm not supposed to exist," he said quietly. "And because I just broke one of their laws. Helping someone like you." Lyra's chest tightened. She wanted to ask more, but she saw in his eyes that he carried pain, the kind that came from too many memories. After a while, she spoke again, softly. "You never told me your name." He hesitated, then said, Aaron Cole." She repeated it under her breath. "Aaron." The name felt heavy but somehow safe. He turned away and sat near the window, watching the glowing streets below. "You should sleep," he said. "We move at dawn." Lyra lay down on a small bench, pulling the cloak close. She could hear the rain tapping against the roof, the soft hum of the shield, and Aaron's quiet breathing. For the first time in her life, she felt something she didn't understand. Not safety, not yet, but the beginning of hope. She closed her eyes, whispering her own name for the first time in years. Lyra. Outside in the dark sky, a drone hovered silently, scanning the area. Its red light blinked once, then vanished into the mist. Aaron saw it through the window. He reached for his weapon and an old earth pulse pistol, and waited until it was gone. His face hardened. He knew what was coming. They would find him soon, and when they did, both he and the girl would become targets. But he also knew something else. He had made his choice. He could have walked away from the auction. He could have ignored her, but when he saw her standing alone under that cold blue light, something inside him had awakened, something he thought humanity had lost forever. He would protect her, whatever the cost, and as the first faint light of dawn touched the edges of Veltor's skyline, Captain Aaron Cole prepared for the fight he knew was coming, a fight not just for one girl's freedom, but for the last piece of humanity still left inside him. The first light of dawn broke through the black clouds above Veltor, painting the city in pale red and gray. The rain had not stopped. It came down harder now, drumming on rooftops and streets like falling metal. Aaron Cole stood by the window of the small room, watching the sky. His eyes were sharp, alert. Every drop of rain reflected the glow of the alien city. Towers of glass, signs written in unknown languages, ships rising like insects into the storm. Behind him, Lyra stirred awake. She blinked slowly, confused by the quiet. It took her a moment to remember where she was, not in a cell, not in chains. The soft fabric around her shoulders still carried his warmth. Aaron turned. "You're awake," he said. His voice was calm but firm. "We need to move. They'll start searching for us soon." Lyra sat up quickly. "They'll find us, won't they?" "Maybe," he said, fastening the strap on his weapon. "But not if we're faster." He handed her a small pack of food, dried fruit, flatbread, and a metal bottle of water. "Eat while we walk. Don't talk to anyone and stay close." She nodded, still weak but determined. When they stepped outside, the wind hit hard. The narrow street smelled of smoke and rust. Vendors were opening their stalls, unaware of the silent alert spreading across the city. A human has broken the law. A slave has escaped. They walked through the lower district, a maze of pipes, neon lights, and whispering strangers. Aaron kept his hood low. Lyra followed close behind, her heart racing every time she saw a patrol drone pass overhead. At one crossing, a group of alien guards stopped them. "Identification," one demanded in a rough voice. Aaron pulled out a small chip and held it up. The guard scanned it, frowned, and waved them through. Lyra didn't know what kind of chip that was, but it worked. As they passed, she glanced up at him. "How did you do that?" Aaron didn't answer. "Keep walking." They entered the outer ring of the city where the storm hit harder. Lightning flashed above, and the tall buildings disappeared behind sheets of rain. They crossed a bridge made of old steel that creaked under their steps. Below it, rivers of runoff water glowed faintly with toxic light. Lyra's voice shook. You said you were a soldier once?" "I was," he said, eyes still forward. "What happened to your world?" He was quiet for a long moment. "We trusted the wrong people." She waited for him to say more. But he didn't. The tone in his voice was heavy, full of pain she couldn't understand. As they reached the end of the bridge, Aaron suddenly stopped. His hand went to his belt. "Down," he whispered. Lyra crouched quickly, hiding behind a crate. A hovercar slid to a stop at the other end of the street. 3 figures stepped out, bounty hunters. Their armor gleamed under the rain, and their eyes glowed red. One of them scanned the area. "The human is near," it hissed. Aaron's muscles tensed. He drew his pulse pistol, its blue light flickering. Lyra's heart pounded. "They're here for me," she whispered. "No," he said. "They're here for us." The hunters moved closer. One pointed a scanner in their direction. Before it could lock, Aaron fired. A flash of blue light cracked through the rain, hitting the scanner out of the hunter's hand. Then chaos erupted. Blasts of energy filled the air. The ground shook as shots hit nearby walls. Aaron grabbed Lyra's arm and pulled her into the alley. "Run!" he shouted. They sprinted through the narrow streets. Sparks flew from broken wires and steam rose from vents. The hunters chased them, shouting in an alien tongue. One blast hit a wall beside Lyra, showering her with sparks. She stumbled, but Aaron caught her before she fell. "Keep moving." They ran until they reached the lower tunnels, dark, dripping corridors that smelled of damp metal. Aaron sealed the hatch behind them, breathing hard. Lyra leaned against the wall, her chest rising and falling quickly. "Who are they?" she asked between breaths. "Collectors," Aaron said. "They hunt for the Empire. Anyone who breaks their laws." She looked at him in fear. "Because you bought me?" He nodded. "And because I'm not supposed to be alive." Lyra stared at him. His coat was torn now, revealing more of the strange markings on his arm, glowing lines under his skin, faint but visible in the dark. "You're not just human, are you?" she whispered. Aaron hesitated. "Not anymore." He sat down against the wall, his face lit by a faint blue light from a device on his wrist. "They experimented on us during the war," he said quietly. "Tried to make soldiers stronger, faster. Some of us survived. Most didn't." Lyra looked at him with a mix of fear and wonder. "You're part machine?" He shook his head. "Part something else." For a while, neither of them spoke. The rain echoed faintly above, like the heartbeat of the city. Finally, Lyra said softly, "You didn't have to save me." "I know." "Then why?" He looked at her, really looked, and in his eyes she saw both strength and sorrow. "Because I've seen too many people turned into numbers. Too many lives treated as things. I couldn't walk away again." She lowered her gaze, her voice barely a whisper. "No one's ever said that to me." Aaron stood and extended his hand. "Come on, we still have a long walk ahead." Lyra took his hand slowly. His grip was warm, steady, human. Together, they moved deeper into the tunnels, their silhouettes fading into the dim light. Far above them, on a high platform, the bounty hunters regrouped. One of them touched its communicator. "Target escaped. Human confirmed alive. Orders?" A cold voice replied through the static. "Follow them. The girl is not just property, she's the key. Do not lose either of them." The rain fell harder, washing the blood and smoke away from the city's metal bones. And somewhere in the darkness, two fugitives, one human, one alien, began a journey that would shake the stars themselves. The storm raged above the city like a furious beast. Lightning flashed through the thick clouds, lighting up the skyline of Veltor for only a heartbeat, before plunging it back into darkness. The sound of thunder blended with the hum of engines as patrol drones circled the streets, scanning for heat signatures. Deep below, in the dripping tunnels, Aaron and Lyra moved quickly through the shadows. Their footsteps echoed on the wet metal floor. The narrow corridors twisted like veins through the city's underbelly, leading toward the outer zone where old transport ships waited. Lyra's hands shook as she followed him. "They'll find us," she whispered. "Not if we keep moving," Aaron said. His tone was firm, but his eyes scanned every dark corner, every flicker of light. He knew they were being hunted. The bounty hunters were professionals, silent, ruthless, and equipped with advanced sensors. Aaron had fought their kind before. They didn't stop until their target was dead or captured. He stopped near a junction and held up a small scanner. The screen flickered, showing 3 red dots moving closer behind them. "They're tracking us," he muttered. Lyra's heart raced. "How? We left no trace." Aaron turned his arm, revealing a faint glow under the skin, the implant that marked him as something not entirely human. "They're reading my signal. I'll have to shut it down." He pressed 2 fingers to the glowing lines and his face twisted in pain. The light under his skin flickered, then dimmed completely. His breathing grew heavy. "Are you okay?" Lyra asked, stepping closer. "I will be," he said, forcing a weak smile. "But we need to hurry. That'll only slow them down for a while." They continued deeper into the tunnels until they reached an open chamber. The roof above was half collapsed, letting the rain fall through in silver streams. Old cargo crates lay scattered across the floor, rusted and broken. Aaron motioned for her to stay low. "We rest here for a minute," he said, checking the weapon on his belt. Lyra sat behind a crate, hugging her knees. Her wet hair stuck to her face. She watched him, the way he moved, calm but tired, like a soldier who had been fighting too long. "You fight like you've done this all your life," she said quietly. Aaron's eyes met hers. "I have." He glanced toward the tunnel they came from. "During the war, I led a squad. We were told we were saving humanity, but in the end we were just experiments." Lyra frowned. "Experiments?" He nodded. "They changed us, made us faster, stronger, but not quite human anymore. When the war ended, they tried to erase us, said we were unstable, dangerous." Lyra looked down at her hands. "That's why you hide." "That's why we survive," he corrected. Before she could answer, a sudden metallic screech filled the chamber. The sound bounced off the walls, a door opening somewhere in the dark. Aaron's body tensed. They're here. The air grew colder. A beam of red light cut through the rain, scanning across the room. Then another. 3 figures stepped out of the shadows, the bounty hunters. Their armor glowed faintly and their weapons hummed with power. Human, one hissed, its voice mechanical. You have something that belongs to the Empire. Aaron raised his pistol. You'll have to take it. The first shot lit up the room like lightning. Blue plasma cracked through the air, slamming into a metal beam. The echo was deafening. Aaron rolled behind a crate, firing back. The hunters split up, moving fast, too fast for normal beings. Lyra crouched behind cover, her hands trembling. What do I do? She shouted over the noise. Stay down, Aaron yelled. He fired again, hitting one hunter's shoulder. Sparks burst from its armor, but it kept coming. The second hunter leaped onto a platform above and aimed at Aaron's back. Lyra saw it and screamed, Behind you! Aaron spun around, blocking the blast with a metal plate he grabbed from the floor. The impact sent him stumbling, but he recovered quickly and fired a precise shot that struck the hunter's weapon, knocking it from its hand. He moved with impossible speed, his eyes glowing faintly now, his body reacting before the enemy even moved. Lyra watched in awe. He wasn't fighting like a human anymore. He was something else. Faster, sharper, almost machine-like. But the hunters were relentless. One tackled him, slamming him into the wall. Aaron grunted, struggling to push the creature away. It raised its blade, ready to strike, and then stopped. A pulse of blue light burst from Lyra's hands. She didn't even know how she did it. The air vibrated and the hunter flew backward, crashing into a pillar. Both Aaron and Lyra froze. The light around her hand slowly faded, leaving faint blue sparks on her skin. What was that? She whispered. Aaron's eyes widened. You're not just a slave, he said quietly. You're enhanced. Like me. Before she could speak, the last hunter fired a blast toward her. Aaron jumped in front of it, taking the hit on his shoulder. He fell to one knee, pain flashing across his face. Lyra screamed his name and raised her hand again, but this time, the energy came like a wave. The blast knocked the last hunter into the wall, where it collapsed and went still. Silence. Only rain. Lyra rushed to Aaron's side. You're hurt. He winced but shook his head. I've had worse. He looked at her hand, still glowing faintly. You didn't tell me you could do that. I didn't know I could, she said, frightened. It just happened. Aaron's gaze softened. Then we'll figure it out. But we need to move. The Empire will know what you did. He stood, blood mixing with rain, and helped her up. Together they stepped out into the storm once more. Behind them, the destroyed hunters sparked and burned, their comm signals sending one final message before going dark. Target confirmed. Hybrid alive. Human protector identified. Captain Aaron Cole. Send reinforcements. As they disappeared into the rain-soaked horizon, the galaxy began to shift, and for the first time in centuries, a human and a half-alien hybrid had stood together against the Empire. And their defiance had just lit the first spark of rebellion. The rain had stopped by the time Aaron and Lyra reached the abandoned outpost. It stood on the edge of the lower district, half buried under layers of dust and vines. Once it had been a human base, small, secret, forgotten by time. Its metal walls were covered in rust and broken lights flickered weakly in the darkness. Aaron pushed open the heavy door with his shoulder. The hinges groaned like a wounded animal. Inside, the air smelled of oil and memory. Old human banners hung in tatters from the ceiling, showing the faded emblem of a blue earth surrounded by stars. Lyra stepped in slowly, her eyes wide. This place, she whispered. It's human. It was, Aaron said. Before the war ended. He closed the door behind them and locked it. The sound echoed through the empty hall. For the first time in hours, there was no thunder, no pursuit, only silence. Lyra walked along the walls, touching the old panels. Everything here feels different, she said softly. Warm, familiar, even though I've never seen anything like it. Aaron gave a small smile. That's because your blood remembers. She turned to him, confused. What do you mean? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked to a dusty console at the center of the room and pressed a few buttons. The old machine flickered to life, projecting a faint blue hologram. It showed a map of the galaxy, one with hundreds of glowing dots. Most were red, marked lost. Only a few remained green. Lyra stared at it. What is this? The old human colonies, Aaron said. Before the Empire erased us from the stars. She stepped closer. Erased? He nodded. After the war, the Council declared humanity a failed experiment. They destroyed our worlds, wiped our data, banned our name from records. The few of us who survived were hunted down or used as weapons. Lyra's voice trembled. That's why they fear you. Aaron looked down. They fear what humans represent. Choice, emotion, the ability to fight for something other than orders. Lyra was quiet for a moment. The hologram light reflected in her silver eyes. And me? She asked. Why are they after me? Aaron turned the console again, opening a file marked with alien symbols. It showed an image, a laboratory, and inside it a capsule with a small child floating in light. Her skin glowed faintly blue and her hair shimmered silver. Lyra gasped. It was her. This, Aaron said softly, was taken 20 years ago on the planet Threx. You weren't born naturally, Lyra. You were created. Her knees weakened. She grabbed the edge of the console to steady herself. Created? He nodded. A hybrid and part human, part Veltoran. They wanted to see if two species could be merged. If they could control both emotion and logic in one being. But something went wrong. You didn't obey them. You felt. Lyra's throat tightened. So that's why they called me defective. Yes, Aaron said. Because you were the only one who cried. Tears filled her eyes now, but she tried to hide them. I don't understand. Why me? Why did you help me? Aaron's voice softened. Because I knew what you were. I saw the markings on your wrists. The same ones from the old project files. I thought they had destroyed them all. Lyra looked at him, shaking her head. You risked everything for a stranger. He gave a tired smile. You're not a stranger. You're proof that humanity didn't vanish, it adapted. The room fell silent again. Outside, the wind howled faintly, carrying the scent of rain and smoke. Lyra sat on a broken chair, staring at her hands. The faint glow beneath her skin pulsed softly like a heartbeat. So the power I used, it's from that experiment? Yes, Aaron said. Half of it is human instinct, the other half is alien energy. You were made to be perfect. But they forgot one thing. She looked up. What? He smiled faintly. Perfection doesn't obey. A small laugh escaped her, shaky but real. You sound like you've said that before. I've lived it, he said quietly. She studied him for a long moment. The lines on his face, the scars on his hands, and he carried history in his eyes. You've lost people, she said softly. Haven't you? Aaron's gaze drifted to the old banners. Everyone I fought beside. My entire squad, my home. His voice cracked for the first time. I survived when they didn't. Sometimes I wish I hadn't. Lyra stood and walked closer. Maybe you were meant to. Maybe to find me. He looked at her, surprised. You said once that humans fight for more than orders, she said. Maybe that's what we are doing now. He didn't answer, but a faint warmth flickered in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. He turned off the hologram and picked up a small metallic locket from the console. When he opened it, a tiny photo flickered inside, a woman and a child smiling. Lyra leaned in. Your family? Aaron nodded slowly. My wife and daughter. They died when the colony fell. I kept fighting because I didn't know how to stop. She placed a gentle hand on his arm. You still fight, but now not just for the past. He looked at her hand, then into her eyes. No, he said quietly. For the future. The lights flickered again, this time with warning tones. Aaron's scanner beeped. They found us, he said sharply. Lyra stood quickly. What do we do? He grabbed his weapon and checked the power cell. We moved to the outer ridge. There's an old shipyard there. If we can reach it, we might get off this planet. She nodded, her fear replaced by determination. Then let's not stop. As they left the outpost, the hologram map flickered one last time. One of the red dots turned faintly blue. A small sign of life returning to a forgotten human colony. Neither of them saw it, but somewhere, the universe had begun to remember them. The air outside the outpost was cold and heavy. Dark clouds gathered again, rolling across the red sky like bruises. Aaron and Lyra moved quickly through the ruins, shattered walls, broken towers, and burnt metal from battles long forgotten. The ground vibrated faintly under their boots as if the planet itself knew what was coming. They were almost at the old shipyard. Aaron's scanner beeped softly with each step, showing a faint path through the debris. "Just a few more miles," he said. "We can make it if we move fast." Lyra followed close behind, her silver hair clinging to her face. She was quiet, lost in thought. The truth of her past still echoed in her mind. That she wasn't born but made, that her very existence was forbidden. Every breath she took now felt heavier. After a long silence, she asked, "Do you ever wish you could forget?" Aaron didn't look back. "Every day," he said. "But memory is all we have left of who we were." They climbed over a fallen wall and stepped onto an open ridge. Below them stretched the vast shipyard, hundreds of abandoned crafts rusting under the endless storm. Some were small transports, others massive war machines half buried in sand. Aaron pointed. "There, that freighter. Old model, but it might still fly." They started down the slope. The wind picked up, carrying a faint sound, not thunder, not rain. A deep rhythmic pulse. Engines. Aaron froze. No. From the horizon, 3 dark shapes appeared in the clouds. Imperial cruisers. Their wings spread wide like metal vultures. Blue lights flickered under their hulls as they descended, kicking up waves of dust. Lyra's eyes widened. "They found us." Aaron grabbed her hand. "Run!" They sprinted across the yard, weaving between broken ships and towers. The sky turned bright as the cruiser's spotlights cut through the storm. Voices echoed through speakers, cold and metallic. "Captain Aaron Cole of the Terran Vanguard, you are charged with treason and illegal rescue of Imperial property. Surrender the hybrid and you may live." Lyra's chest tightened. "They're talking about me." "They're lying," Aaron said. "They don't spare anyone." They ducked behind an old transport as a beam of energy scorched the ground nearby. The explosion shook the earth. Pieces of metal flew through the air. Lyra covered her ears. "We can't fight that." Aaron checked his weapon, only 2 charges left. "We don't have to. We just need to reach the freighter." They ran again, dodging falling debris. Above them, small attack drones poured out from the cruisers, swarming like black insects. Aaron shot 2 down, but more replaced them. One drone locked onto Lyra and fired a red beam. Aaron pushed her aside, the blast grazing his arm. He gritted his teeth, ignoring the pain. "Aaron," she cried, "I'm fine. Keep moving." They finally reached the freighter. Its doors were half open, rusted, but Aaron forced them apart with his bare hands. The old ship groaned in protest. Inside, the air was stale and dark. Lyra helped him seal the door behind them. "Can it fly?" "We'll find out," he said, sliding into the pilot's seat. He tapped a few buttons. The engines coughed, then whined weakly. Lights flickered across the console. "Come on." Outside, the sound of approaching boots echoed through the metal yard. Dozens of Imperial soldiers landed from dropships, their armor glowing white. The commander's voice came through the comm system again. "Final warning. Surrender the hybrid and face no further harm. Refuse and both will be erased." Aaron looked at Lyra. She shook her head. "Don't listen to them." He smiled faintly. Wasn't planning to. He slammed a lever forward. The engines roared, shaking the whole ship. Dust and fire swirled around it. But before they could lift off, a massive blast hit the side of the freighter, tearing through its wing. The ship lurched violently. Lyra fell against the console. Sparks flew. Aaron pulled her up. "Emergency hatch, move!" They climbed through the top hatch just as soldiers surrounded the wreck. The commander stepped forward, a tall alien with a face of silver plates and cold red eyes. "Captain Cole," he said, "you disappoint me. Your kind was supposed to vanish quietly." Aaron faced him, breathing hard. "We don't vanish," he said. "We endure." The commander tilted his head. "And this creature beside you, the failed experiment, she doesn't belong to you." "She doesn't belong to anyone," Aaron said. The commander raised his hand. "Then she dies." Before the soldiers could fire, the air around Lyra shimmered. A low hum filled the air, the same sound she heard back in the tunnels, only stronger now. The glow beneath her skin spread across her arms and chest, bright as fire. Aaron stepped back. "Lyra!" Her eyes turned a deep, radiant blue. The air vibrated as her energy built like a storm. The soldiers hesitated, unsure whether to attack. "Stop," she said softly, but her voice echoed like thunder. "You call me a weapon, but you don't understand what that means." A wave of blue light burst from her, sweeping across the shipyard. The blast threw soldiers off their feet and sent ships sliding across the sand. The cruisers above flickered, their systems failing for a moment. Aaron shielded his face, the power blinding. When the light faded, the entire battlefield was silent. Dozens of soldiers lay unconscious. The commander's armor was cracked, his face pale with shock. He stared at Lyra, trembling. What are you?" Lyra's voice was calm. "Something you tried to destroy." Aaron stepped beside her, smoke rising from his clothes. He looked at the stunned commander and said, "Tell your empire we're done hiding." The commander stumbled backward, then signaled his retreat. The cruisers began to rise, engines roaring as they pulled away into the clouds. As the dust settled, Lyra collapsed, her glow fading. Aaron caught her before she hit the ground. "I can't." "Control it," she whispered weakly. "You will," he said, holding her close. "You just saved both of us." She looked at him through half-closed eyes. "You didn't run. I told you," he said softly. "We endure." He lifted her gently and carried her toward the edge of the ridge. Behind them, the ruins burned, lighting the dark sky like a dying sun. For the first time in centuries, the Empire had retreated. And somewhere deep in the storm, a whisper began to spread. The humans are rising again. The storm had finally broken. The rain was gone, leaving behind a sky of soft golden gray. The twin suns of Veltor began to rise slowly over the horizon, turning the battlefield into a sea of light and shadows. Smoke rose from the ruined ships and broken machines. The air smelled of metal, dust, and something new. Peace. Aaron Cole stood among the wreckage, his coat torn, his arm still bleeding where the blast had hit. His weapon hung loosely at his side, its charge long gone. He was exhausted, but his eyes were steady, watching the horizon as the light spread. In his arms, Lyra stirred. Her skin was pale, her breathing weak. The blue glow that had once surrounded her was now only a faint shimmer around her fingertips. Aaron knelt beside a piece of broken metal and gently laid her down. "Hey," he said quietly, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. "You're still here." Her eyes opened slowly, silver and soft like moonlight on water. "Did we win?" Aaron gave a small, tired smile. "For now." She looked around, the fallen soldiers, the empty sky, the silent machines. "I didn't mean to do that," she whispered. "I just wanted it to stop." "It's okay," he said. "You did what you had to. You saved us both." Lyra tried to sit up, but her body trembled. Aaron helped her, wrapping his cloak around her shoulders. "Rest," he said. "You've done enough for one lifetime." They sat in silence for a long time, the wind carrying the faint hum of the waking city below. Far away, the Empire's ships were gone, but their retreat would not last forever. Aaron knew that. He knew they would come again, stronger, angrier, determined to erase what had just happened. But for now, there was peace. Lyra's gaze wandered across the horizon. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "I never thought I'd see a sunrise." "You get used to it," Aaron said. "After a few hundred battles, it's the only thing that still feels new." She smiled faintly. "You've seen a lot, haven't you?" "Too much. Then why do you keep fighting?" Aaron was quiet for a moment, watching the sun climb higher. "Because someone has to. Because if we stop, the stories end." Lyra turned to look at him, puzzled. "Stories?" He nodded. "Every world that burns, every person who's forgotten, they disappear when no one remembers. I fight so there's still someone left to tell the story." Lyra thought about that, about the faces of those who never got to be free, the slaves, the soldiers, the nameless. Her throat tightened. "Then we tell it together." Aaron looked at her, surprised by the quiet strength in her voice. "Together?" "Yes," she said, her tone steady. "You said humans endure. Maybe this is how, not just through fighting, but by remembering, by rebuilding." For the first time in years, Aaron felt something shift inside him, something he thought he'd lost long ago. Hope. It wasn't loud or shining. It was quiet, fragile, but real. He stood slowly and offered her his hand. "Then let's start with getting off this planet." She took his hand, her grip weak but sure. "You think that old ship will still fly?" He smiled. "It doesn't have to fly far. Just far enough." They made their way back toward the damaged freighter. The ground crunched under their boots, and the light from the suns reflected off the metal. Aaron climbed inside the cockpit, checking the controls. Sparks flew, but one engine hummed faintly when he powered it. "It's alive," he said. Lyra slid into the seat beside him. Where will we go? Anywhere the Empire isn't, he said, then paused. Or maybe where they least expect. The ship groaned as it lifted slightly from the ground. Dust swirled around them like smoke from an old dream. As the freighter rose higher, the battlefield below looked smaller, the scars of war fading under the golden light. Lyra leaned back, closing her eyes. Do you think they'll come after us again? Aaron looked out the window. Without a doubt, she smiled weakly. Good, let them try. Aaron laughed quietly, a sound rare and honest. You really are part human. She looked at him, a spark of playfulness in her tired eyes. Maybe the better part. He glanced at her, pretending to think. We'll see. They shared a moment of silence that didn't need words. Two souls, one born, one created, bound by choice, not by chains. As the ship broke through the clouds, the twin suns shone brighter, painting everything in gold. From above, the city of Veltor looked small, almost peaceful, unaware that its history had just changed. Aaron set the coordinates on the console. The stars stretched ahead, endless and waiting. Where to, Captain? Lyra teased softly. He chuckled. You outranked me the moment you glowed like a supernova. She laughed, and for the first time it sounded free. He looked at her, his voice calm but filled with meaning. We'll go where stories are still being written. Places they told us were gone. Lyra nodded. And maybe we'll find others like us. Aaron's eyes softened. If there are, we'll give them something to believe in. The engines flared brighter, cutting through the mist. Below them, the wreckage faded. Above them, the stars opened. Infinite, untouched, full of promise. Lyra looked through the viewport, her voice barely a whisper. For so long I thought I was nothing. Aaron turned to her. You're not nothing. You're proof that hope can be made, even in a lab. She smiled faintly, tears glimmering in her eyes. Then what are you? He looked ahead at the stars. Just the fool who decided to believe again. The freighter broke free of Veltor's atmosphere, soaring into the black sea of space. Behind them, the world grew smaller, but ahead, countless others waited. And as the ship disappeared among the stars, a signal quietly pulsed through the galaxy. Faint, human, alive. It carried two names the universe had long forgotten. Aaron Cole, Lyra Threx. The message was simple, but powerful. We are not gone. We are human, and we remember.